Welcome to Quarantine's This review of Lovecraft Country Episode 2. And this is a brilliant episode. If you have not seen it, then definitely go check it out because it is amazing. By the end of it, my jaw was hitting the ground, my eyes were popping, and my heart was thumping. This episode was amazing. And I'm going to give my review of it first, and then I'm going to break down only the first half or so of this episode. I'm not going to break down the whole episode because I don't want to ruin it completely for anybody who hasn't seen it. Just wow. So welcome to the Quarantine's This review of Lovecraft Country Episode 2, and this is a brilliant episode. It has a brilliant narrative that is very thought-provoking and really flips the Lovecraftian mythos on its head. It really subverted my expectations. It's well-paced, with perfect timing, no wasted moments, perfect dialogue that fills in so many blanks and sets up so many questions, and none of the dialogue is wasted, and none of the dialogue feels forced. The acting is spot on, and the actors encapsulate their characters. You really believe they are these people. The effects are amazing, as you don't notice a lot of them most of the time. Obviously, the monsters and other obvious things are FX, but other things like buildings and animals, you can't tell. They blend in perfectly with the way they've shot the scenes, the lighting, the textures. It is just perfect. It's got some great music, from black old music to Marilyn Manson, and some amazing scores, and even some historical voice recordings. It still fits in with the visuals you are seeing. It's amazing what they've managed to do with the musical score for this series so far, and we're only into episode 2. It just keeps getting better and better. The episodes are perfectly structured, with a first act that throws you into the main story and seamlessly sets up the story for the episode. It gives you a well-crafted script and action scenes at the right moment that never feel overdone. The drama is heart-pounding, and slow simmering of fear builds up inside of you as the episodes go on. My heart was pounding, my thoughts were provoked, and my eyes literally popped out of their sockets with the end of this episode. It is an amazing roller coaster of an episode that has a grand finale that feels like an end of a slow-moving series, not the end to an episode, especially episode 2. I'm seriously gonna have to watch this episode again because of how entertaining it was. It's so amazing, I'm only going to break down the first half of the episode, and that is coming up right now. So if you don't want to hear the breakdown of the episodes with extra reviews in it, then go watch episode 2 of Lovecraft Country now. Or if you've already seen it, continue watching and continue on the conversation in the comments below and let us know what you think of it. Remember to like this video if you're enjoying it so far, and remember to subscribe to Quarantine This for our weekly uploads, if not daily. Spoiler alert ahead. Now is the breakdown to the first half or so of Lovecraft Country Episode 2. At the beginning, we get a rundown of Episode 1, and they recap it as if it's the town they visit near Arkham just doesn't like outsiders at all. However, on the episode itself, it comes across as just white man bad. Now, I don't mind the amount of racism in it, but they try to make out that all white men are bad. But I'll twist it on its head, as long as Jordan Peele is there making a point that if you think it's bad watching it and it's angering you, try living through it. That narrative works really well, and if that's what Jordan Peele is trying to do, then he pulls it off perfectly. The town from episode 1 reminds me so much of Innsmouth, but without the weird goings-ons and weird fish people. While the main characters seem to be happy in their new dig, living like white slave owners, they seem to like that lifestyle. Or is it just the rich lifestyle they're after? Because the place looks like it could be a cotton plantation. Of course, the main character isn't happy as he's reliving what he lived through to get to here. Bear in mind that we have the strange woman from South Korea who spoke in Cthulhu language, the rich white woman who helped them get to their location, the cult, and the rich white man. They've left the characters' development behind and now they're going into developing the cult and its background. William then takes the Freemans and Letitia around the house, and we get a nice little tour for the audience so that we get to see the cult and certain aspects, and a lot of the mise-en-scène really sets up some questions which will definitely be answered by the end of episode 2. We find out that there was a fire in 1833 during an autumnal equinox, which you know was done during a massive cult spell. Through natural dialogue, we found out that there is no phone in the place and that they are cut off from the outside. For keeping the cult a secret, they do like to promote it in their artwork. They do confirm that indeed they are living in a slave owner's plantation. Should they have really been that happy at the beginning of the episode? The house they chose is amazing. You almost can't tell that half of the house is fake. The effects are brilliant. Atticus knows something is up. He should know a lot more because of his past that episode 1 alluded to with the South Korean phone call conversation and the Cthulhu language. And 7 minutes in, already the mystery of the episode has started. As all but Atticus can remember what is happening, they have forgotten about the monsters. Why is that? How did they forget those monsters, and why aren't they freaked out when they wake up in the morning realizing that they had forgotten memory or had lost time? You know if you lose time. Yet somehow they've forgotten. Then Uncle George lets them know they are being watched and tells them to sit down and lets them know to be quiet. They've just arrived at the place and now they want out. If I was black, woke up in a slave plantation and didn't know how I got there, I would also want to get the heck out of there as well. Can anybody else say Roofy? Jordan Patrick Smith, who plays William, is a great actor. He makes the guy natural and familiar, looks and sounds like a real person, and not just a cardboard cutout of a stereotypical white man. He does play William cool, smart, sophisticated, and with plenty of mystery. He has a gaze that says, "Don't mess with me," and when him and Attica have a go at each other, dude, do those two really have a presence on screen? They can really face off each other. The Freemans then head to town, where a creepy Wickerman scene is happening. The place looks like it's stuck in the mid-1800s, but Uncle George and Letitia aren't bothered by this. Instead, we get backstory about Atticus and his time in the army, helping build these characters and the backgrounds up in a fluid way. This is how you make a good scene. Plenty of interest in the mise-en-scène and stage design, while the conversation makes you focus on something else. The characters aren't talking about themselves or their problems, and there's a lot less racist context conversations going on. So far, only one reference to racism in this episode. The first episode touched on racism in practically every scene. Letitia and George think Atticus has shell shock as they don't believe him when he said what happened the night before. Then you hear the whistle that called off the monsters from last time, and a mystery tower with angry and oh so cute dogs are protecting it. The tower is a slaughterhouse, probably where they keep the monsters or where they try to tame them. Something ain't right in this village. Surprisingly, the uncle notices that the tower has a basement. What's in the basement? Pain. George gets recollections of what Atticus' mother tells him about her ancestors, probably the voodoo cult that worshipped Cthulhu. Then he mentions that Braithwhite was notoriously kind to his slaves. The plot with the family thickens. The monsters come out 15 minutes in, then Christina comes out on a white horse and saves the day and then tells some of the other villagers to take the Freemans and Letitia to the lab. And this lab looks like something from the Dark Crystal. And as you can see, a guy is on the bed being operated on by a member of the cult. Wonder if there will be a guy with a gorilla body in this episode. No, there isn't. But that is a Lovecraftian novel which is part of the Cthulhu mythos. George is going through the library. He finds a book, The House on the Borderlands and Other Tales. He touches it and opens up a secret room that George then goes into. A secret library where he finds the bylaws and precepts of the Order of the Ancient Dawn. So far, this episode has already set up the main storyline for the series, thrown in a lot more mystery for the characters and the main storyline, started off the storyline for this episode, brought in the characters that help round out and create this episode, whilst leading you along with interesting props that give you questions that need to be answered, thankfully and surprisingly enough, by the end of this episode. Then we go back to the laboratory with Atticus and Christina, and we find out that it's Mr. Braithwhite that was being operated on. Then the cult bring in the Bible into their mythos, and Atticus answers some of the questions that Mr. Braithwhite asks about it. A very well executed scene, even if they, like most of the entertainment today, corrupts the Bible and you find out that Mr. Braithwhite is indeed Adam. Dun dun dun! And then we find out that a ritual called the Ceremony at Dawn is going to take place. And this is why they've brought the Freemans to where they are, because they need them to help them with the ceremony at dawn. Christina and Atticus really get on well on screen, and in this scene they're talking about whether or not they are and aren't friends, as a war or enemies is coming, and it's best that Atticus chooses a side. So Atticus will only choose a side if Christina takes off the amnesia spell from Letitia and George, which he does, which instantly makes Letitia and George panic as they remember the encounters with the monsters and the fact that everything Atticus had told them is, in fact, true and did happen. Christina then gets called away to a cow that seems to have been operated on so that it can give birth to the monsters that protect their village. And you can tell that Christina has a very motherly bond with these monsters that protect them. She looks at them as a child, as something she needs to nurture and to look after. And she plays this perfectly as it comes through only through her facial acting expressions. Something that a lot of series that try to be mainstream lose out on. They don't let their actors really act in a scene with just their body language or their face. It's mainly through dialogue. So when you see actors on the small screen that do just act with their body language and facial expressions, for me personally, it's quite mesmerizing. Then we go back to the Freemans and Letitia, where they try to escape. But Atticus has already found his way into her bedroom, where they start to talk about her mum and how her mum used to go to church services on a Sunday, and one day she didn't come back, leaving Letitia all alone. These characters are starting to get a rich mural constructed behind them with their past and their history, bringing in a lot of concepts from the episodes together to help round out the episode itself, as well as the characters. And these actors are brilliant. They really encapsulate the characters that they play. But then we get our expectations subverted, not for the first time this episode, and definitely not for the last, as we find out that Atticus is actually still in his room talking to his Uncle George via Morse code, and then someone starts shooting at him in his room. So who is with Letitia in hers? The woman fighting him is the one who he tried to reach in South Korea via the phone. How did she get here and why is she here? Then his uncle sees an old flame from the past and he knows she's not real as she's dead. So what's going on? This scene just keeps on building so many twists, adds so many good deflections to what you think is happening and how you think it's happening, only to find out that they're all being brainwashed by the Braithwhites. Halfway through and we reach a really good pinnacle of the episode. So much has happened and things are getting weird. Atticus is fighting and getting wounded by the stranger from South Korea. Letitia is making out with Atticus, who isn't Atticus, and the uncle is dancing with his long-lost love, who he knows isn't there, but doesn't care. What are the Braithwhites doing to the Freemans and why? How are they connected with bringing Cthulhu back? 1.5 episodes in and things have gotten deeply layered and very weird. It's got you hooked and knows how to keep a good pace and knows how to keep you entertained whilst making your mind to think, whilst at the same time keeping you transfixed in what's going on. Then we see that Christina is with a load of rich white dudes watching everything happen to Atticus, Letitia, and George. This bit very much reminded me of Jordan Peele's Get Out. The Freemans are all very shook up after their ordeal and they know what is happening, but they feel powerless to stop it. Very reminiscent and thought-provoking of what the original Africans went through when being taken to America by the Dutch. Earlier, when they were talking to Mr. Braithwhite, Adam mentioned that there was a hierarchy that worked before Eve broke the law they had, that brought tribalism into the world. When one tribe wins, they sell the losing tribe into slavery for better weapons. Happened in ancient Egypt, Rome, Greece, and Sparta, and happened in Africa. I'm hoping it's not just me that had these thoughts about the history of slavery and what the losing tribe of Africa went through when being shipped to America. I'm hoping this is what this episode was trying to provoke, because if it is, then it worked. If it's not, then it's just me reading too much into Lovecraft Country and Jordan Peele's concepts. Then in the episodes, William invites the Freemans to a black tie luxurious feast. However, Letitia isn't allowed to come as she is female. While they're there, Adam starts to talk to the cult members about the ceremony at dawn that is happening when Uncle George speaks up. He talks about Prince Hall, a man who tried to get into the Freemasons but couldn't because he was coloured. George found a loophole, however, whilst reading their bylaws from earlier in the library that he found. He found out that men who are direct descendants from Titus Braithwhite are sons among sons, and they are in charge and they can give orders. And his nephew Atticus is the last blood heir of Titus Braithwhite. And so Titus tells them all to get out except for Mr. Braithwhite. They don't. Surprise, surprise. But then Atticus puts his army face on and tells them that it's an order. So only Mr. Braithwhite, Adam, stays. Then Atticus orders Adam to return his father to him. But Adam isn't below him. He's in charge and lets him know he's in charge. And that even though the Freemans are needed, they're not technically needed alive. So Atticus and George run off to the tower knowing that there is a dungeon underneath it. They go into the dungeon and find out that Atticus's father was there through a drinking flask that they find. They get cornered by the woman who had the dogs from earlier in the episode who was looking after the tower, and they manage to escape with the help of Letitia through a secret tunnel. But when we see them emerge, it's not them emerging, but Atticus's dad in handcuffs. They literally just missed him. But thanks to plot reasons, The Freemans and Letitia are standing exactly where Atticus's dad comes out from. Then they hop in the car and start to drive away. And this is where they brilliantly flipped the Cthulhu mythos on its head. They start talking about a book, and Atticus's father mentions the Necronomicon, which is where Cthulhu and all of his mythos is from. The Necronomicon was started by Edgar Allan Poe, but it was taken up by Lovecraft in the early 1900s and then adapted for screen through The Evil Dead. So the Necronomicon is a book of the dead, but the book George is talking about and the book that the Braithwhites are looking for is the Book of Life. Then they hit an invisible wall and realise that they are indeed trapped. That was unexpected, but also expected. I wasn't expecting them to hit a secret invisible wall, but I was expecting them to get stopped. Then Adam turns up and shoots Letitia. He did warn Atticus that this would happen. Shit, did not see this coming. Thought they were going to shoot Atticus' father instead. Now I'm not going to ruin the rest of this episode because I thought this was the end of this episode. But do trust me, you have to go watch this episode. You have to watch this series. It is amazing. It builds up and carries on, and you don't have to wait for the next episode to find out a lot of the answers that this episode sets up. From here, you get some brilliant drama scenes and conclusions. Plus, you get the ceremony they were talking about in the first half. You don't have to wait 9 episodes to see what happened. Trust me, it subverts expectations. You really have no idea how amazing and eye-popping the end of this episode is. A lot of other series would make their first arc in their first series. This and episode 1. I thought it looked like an end of a series. This is a 9 out of 10 for episodes. This series is amazing and you know it's going to win awards, and rightly so. If this series was on anything other than HBO Max, it would be terrible because they wouldn't be able to put in a lot of what really makes this series stand out, such as the blood, guts, gore, and swearing, and everything else. It's amazing TV and is up there with Breaking Bad, Sopranos, Futurama, Smallville, and so many other historical TV series. If you haven't watched Lovecraft Country yet, you have to start. So let us know what you think about Lovecraft Country and the series and this episode in the comments below. Give us a like if you enjoyed watching this video, and remember to subscribe to Quarantine This for our weekly updates. Thank you very much for watching. This has been Quarantine This with Lovecraft Country Episode 2 review, and until next time, take care and bye for now.